Hi, this is Jenna with Conspiracies Unlocked. Before we start this episode, Heather and I just wanted to give a quick intro. We recorded the conspiracy surrounding the Titanic a couple of weeks ago. It is purely coincidental that OceanGate Titan went to visit the Titanic last week and got lost and ultimately imploded. Our deepest sympathy goes out to the friends and family of Hamish Harding, Shahzada Dawood, and his son Solomon Dawood, Stockton Rush, and Paul Henry Nargiolet. We know there are a lot of conspiracies already stirring around OceanGate, Titan, and we may visit those conspiracies in the future. For now, though, this episode will be what we already pre-recorded and will be about the conspiracy surrounding the Titanic shipwreck of 1912. Here's the episode and enjoy! Hi, this is Jenna.
And this is Heather.
And this is Conspiracies Unlocked. And today we are talking about the Titanic.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Well, I've always been really intrigued by the Titanic in general, ever since I saw James Cameron's movie. And, it sounds stupid. It sounds like super cliche that I'd be like, oh, I'm all about the Titanic. But I really have read a lot about it. And it's not because of Leonardo DiCaprio or anything like that.
Why not?
I didn't really find him that awesome. I never have.
Leo. I like
He's
Leo.
a great actor, but he was never like Brad Pitt, Josh Hartnett. There are certain people that I'm like, Tim McGraw.
I mean, he's no Mark Wahlberg, that's for sure.
No. So that was a thing. So
Yeah.
I never did, but I do remember,
And also, we're not 20 anymore, so he wouldn't date us. I mean, 19.
What I was going to say is, if any of you guys remember, when Titanic came out, do you guys remember that on Growing Pains, on Disney Channel, he was on Growing Pains for legit, 10 episodes.
Wasn't he the homeless kid?
Yes, and they literally played
and he had the bowl cut.
Yeah, and I had watched Growing Pains all the time, never noticed it, never whatever.
Yes.
And it was already on reruns on Disney. And they legit brought back Growing Pains and then had it on repeat for 3 months, the same 14 episodes, because Leonardo DiCaprio was in it. So I actually know those episodes more than I do any of the other episodes, because they just kept replaying it when that came out.
I loved watching Growing Pains. That was one of my favorite shows. And Who's the Boss was another one I loved.
Do you remember the Torgelsons?
I was in love with Tony Danzig.
Yeah, no, you're older than me.
Well, but he was way older. He's way older than I am, but he just was
I
so
thought,
cute.
is he even alive still?
I'm pretty sure he is. He's probably I think he's, I don't know how old he is.
What else was Tony Danza in?
I want to say he's in, I think he was in Taxi, wasn't he?
I think my mom talked about Taxi.
Oh, I used to watch Taxi too with my mom.
Okay, that makes more sense, because I watch I Love Lucy with my mom.
Oh, yeah, I love Lucy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there are, I get that.
Yeah.
But Taxi, that was, Danny DeVito.
Well, that was, before my time, but they would do, the reruns on Channel 6. We only had Channel 6 where I lived, so whatever was on, we were stuck watching.
Yeah. Well, anyways, so... I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore. You've completely sidetracked me. Titanic. Let's talk about the Titanic.
Yes, let's get into it.
Okay. So, there have been so many conspiracies, around the Titanic, pretty much from the moment the Titanic sank. The conspiracies have just circled and circled. And then, of course, they catch traction every so often. There was a movie in, the 50s that came out that was about the Titanic called A Night to Remember.
Oh. So,
this isn't, a new thing for James Cameron to come out with the Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. FYI, I have to add this, that Jack and Rose were not real people.
They were not real people?
No, they were not real people. In fact, when I was researching this episode,
my assistant was like, did you know that Rose was real or whatever or something? And I was like, no, she wasn't.
I thought that
And then she was like, the old lady at the end. And I was like, no, you dumb ass.
Oh, well, okay, so I see what she thought. She thought that was, like, the lady they brought her back, and that was, like...
That was all legit, but it's not.
I thought that the characters were... based loosely on, like, real people.
Okay, so some of the people were based on real people. Like, the unsinkable Molly Brown. That was a real person.
Okay.
The captain. Certain people were real.
Yeah.
But the story of Jack and Rose was completely made up, and they were not based on anybody real.
Okay, so it was like more of a Romeo and Juliet story. Like,
yes. What's funny, it wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio in Romeo and Juliet?
He was, yeah. No, he wasn't. Was it called Romeo and Juliet? Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
With Claire Danes, right?
I don't know. I didn't watch it because I wasn't, as I said, a Leonardo fan.
It's lovely, yo.
Do you know that my mom...
Oh, fun fact.
Here we go.
Okay, fun fact. I probably shouldn't say this, but because nobody knows who my family is, I have a source who
Your family literally listens to this.
No, I mean...
Hi,
like,
Clay.
I mean, like... Actual,
I know you listen.
Yeah, hi, Clay. Actually, like, people, like, in the world. Like, people in Brussels don't know who my family is. But
okay,
here's a fun fact.
What are you fun facting?
My mom's best friend lived in...
My mom's best friend's housekeeper's aunt's nephew's cousin.
No. Okay. Someone extremely, I won't say who, someone extremely close to me lives in San Juan Capistrano in California.
Oh, that's near us, about 100 miles.
And Leonardo DiCaprio and his grandparents frequent a certain restaurant there.
No shit, we should go.
And they did go. And they were taking photographs with their personal camera. And then the grandparents who live in San Juan Capistrano area took those photographs to a certain photography studio place to get, like... I have an actual real copy, like, picture. A live photo, like an old school photo. Like an old school, like, paper picture. Not digital.
Like a Polaroid?
No, like an actual, like, 35mm camera picture.
Like the disposable cameras, like the real,
But, like, they took it themselves. Somebody gave me a copy that they, like, double copied legally.
Yeah.
And gave me a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio with his grandparents, and they're in, like, full suits and decked to the nines at this very fancy restaurant. And they're like, here, Leonardo DiCaprio's grandparents came in to get pictures
developed,
and we made you a copy so you have a picture of him. I randomly still have this picture of Leonardo DiCaprio with his grandparents. I swear to God.
That is such a fun fact.
It's so random.
Okay.
It's so
I wonder if they went to Logan's. I want to take
It's in Santa Monica Capistrano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay.
It's so random, but I have
So, that was a really fun fact.
Right.
Meanwhile... So my fun fact that I was already going to say, before your fun fact, was that back then Titanic actually was, the full movie of the Titanic was the same amount of time that it took the Titanic to sink. Oh. And because when it came out in 1997, I think it came out, I didn't really research the movie too much because it's not about the movie, it's about what actually happened. It came on 2 VHS tapes, and it stops right when, the first VHS tape stops right when they're like, we're gonna hit the iceberg. And then, yeah, it's like right around that time, it's like a climactic, like, experience, and then it goes to the next VHS tape. And my mom...
explain what VHS tapes are for people?
I hope not. It was pre-DVD. It was like a cassette tape, but bigger, and watched movies.
It was a rectangle.
It was a rectangle black thing. Well, I guess sometimes black, sometimes different colors.
Some of them were kind of clear sometimes.
Well, Nickelodeon had orange ones, so there's always that. Yeah, it's like a cassette tape. Oh, you don't know what that is either if you don't know what a VHS is. Because CDs, I think, came out before DVDs.
Just Google VHS.
Yeah, figure it out yourself. But we had to use this thing called a VCR.
Ooh, yeah. And if you had a VCR /
DVD player?
Rich,
oh,
man.
no. I had one. Built into my TV, in fact. But so my mom was so overprotective that she would not allow me to watch Titanic.
Why?
Because of the sex scene.
Oh, the hand, the infamous.
Right? That's all
hand.
it is the hand on the thing. You
well,
don't really.
It kind of does show her.
Oh
boobs.
yeah, the painting, the drawing thing.
Yeah.
But either way, so my friend Ashley was like, "Well, she can't be mad if I get it for you for your like Christmas present or birthday present." So anything my mom wouldn't let me have, Ashley would just buy for me for like Christmas, Easter, whatever, and then that way I'd get it.
Thanks, Ashley.
Right?
We all need an Ashley.
Everybody loves an Ashley. Hi, Ashley. So anyways, I'm gonna, so maybe that's why I'm so obsessed with the Titanic, because I wasn't allowed to, so it's like
Yeah.
you know, what you're not allowed to do, you do.
Yeah, I mean,
It makes sense,
I remember when Titanic came out, it was a big deal.
Such a big
It
deal.
was a big deal.
Well, because nobody had like, James Cameron the director really did a good job on the effects and all of that at a time when that wasn't available, really.
And keeping it really real to what it really was. Like,
Yeah.
authentic.
He did an amazing job keeping it authentic and just trying to like really capture what the Titanic was and the magnitude of how great and fabulous and just classy it truly was. Yeah, it was almost like when E.T. came out. That was like a huge deal. I mean, that was Steven Spielberg, or like Star Wars, you know, at that time. It was just such a cinematic progression that they've never seen before at that time. And yeah, so anyways, so I'm going to do some basic facts on the Titanic, just so we all are on the same page in case some of you guys, I know most, like 99.9% of you people have heard of the Titanic, but there might be some facts that you don't know or you forgot about. So on April 2nd, 1912, the Titanic did several sea trials, and they tested the speed, turns, and emergency stops. And then the Titanic left Belfast, Ireland, which is where the Titanic was built. The Titanic heads to Southampton, England, and from the April 3rd through the 10th, the Titanic loads up on supplies it needs, and then also finds a crew, and then trains the crew, because you have to think that they don't have a crew because it's a brand new ship.
Yeah, and it's a massive
ship for the time, and we'll get into that. And then from April 10th, from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m., the passengers start boarding. Then at 12 noon, the Titanic sets sail for the maiden voyage. The Titanic was a massive ship of its time. The Titanic could hold 3,320 people.
Wow, I didn't even know it was that many.
Right? I didn't either, which includes passengers and crews. She was 882 feet long, 92 feet wide, and 175 foot high. So to put that into like a little bit of perspective, the gate between Disneyland, I'm a Disney person, the gate between Disneyland, like the entrance gate, and Disney California, the entrance gate, is 250 feet.
Oh, wow.
So that means it was as long as walking back and forth between the two gates 3.5 times.
Wow, that's a good measure, you know, because
yeah,
a lot of people have been there, and I went there last August with the kids. And you
went with me for D23.
When was that?
September.
Oh, it was 1 month difference.
Whatever, go on.
I'm just saying that, like, I remember from the last time that I was there, the distance. That's a great distance.
Yeah, times 3.5.
Yeah.
And then she was also 3 school buses wide. Yellow school buses.
Yeah, like the
not
standard,
the mini, but the standard school buses, not the charter. And she was over a football field and a half tall.
Whoa.
That's gnarly.
That's really big. That's a huge
That's
height.
crazy.
A football field.
So, well, for nowadays, she's not really that big. The ships now are easily 10 times that size.
Yeah, but for 1912?
That was it was the biggest ship then.
Yeah.
And so she would displace 66,000 tons of water when it was moving, when she was moving.
Oh, wow.
So just to like move, it just moved
Yeah.
66,000 tons. Can you even imagine what ships would do now?
And wasn't the Titanic fueled with like the coal? Like they had to like shovel. So there's people down way below.
Actually, there was 176 men to keep everything going. The ship required 600 tons of coal a day.
600?
Mm-hmm. And 100 tons of ash were discarded into the Atlantic every day they were at sea.
Oh, they just dropped it in the sea.
Well, where else would it? What are you gonna do with it?
I never thought about it.
Yeah, no, but why would you?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and they're worried about our carbon footprint. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, God.
Meanwhile, so when you look at the Titanic, there are 4. They call them tunnels, but the smokestacks, the cylinders that the smoke comes out of. But only 3 of them were real. The 4th one was only for show and aesthetic purposes.
Oh, okay. Just to make it look an even.
Yeah, just so it looks more grand, maybe.
Okay.
The Titanic was divided into 3 different classes. First class, second class, and third class. But there were only 2 bathtubs for the third class.
2 total?
2 total first, and there was 700 people in third class.
Wait, what?
So when you do the math,
Does that include a toilet?
Just bathtubs.
Oh.
I don't know about toilets, but bathtubs. So they were lucky to get like a bath in like the whole trip.
But didn't people bathe less back then?
Yeah, but still.
I mean, I'm not saying that.
They did have suites and staterooms that had their own bathtubs.
Oh yeah, the upper class.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like,
if you can afford it, it was available. But if not, then 2 though. But 2.
They could have put in more, and the Titanic had their own freaking newspaper for Christ's sake. Like legit.
What? I didn't know anything about that.
It was called the Atlantic Daily Bulletin.
Oh, wow.
And it would cover news. It had ads, had the stock prices, horse racing results, society gossip.
So the gossip that was happening on the Titanic while they were
No,
there?
I'm not sure. I was wondering that as well, but I don't think so. I think it probably did the society gossip like page 6.
Like
New York, London, yeah.
Like the big cities.
The big cities, all the gossipy stuff.
It's
Right?
like the TMZ
Yeah.
of 1912.
Yeah. And then they also had the menu for the day. So the news report, the newspaper would come out every day.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? But you can't afford more bathtubs for third class, huh?
So they had a printing press and everything on board. And a whole...
Oh, shit. I guess so.
They would have to.
They would, unless they're like handwriting this shit out, which they're not.
No, they would have to have a printing press on board, and they would have to have like a whole
because they wouldn't know the racing schedule until they get it like through the radio and stuff. They wouldn't know like the racing results and the gossip and stock prices. That's insane. I didn't even think about that. I should have looked that up had I thought.
Really, really impressive. No, they had to have.
Yeah. And then first class, obviously, they got shrimp and steak. And third class got like oats and water, no doubt. Like just like nothing.
Slop.
Like, yeah. Oatmeal maybe, if they're lucky, with a few breadcrumbs.
So they got prison food.
Yeah.
And then the elites got like the main stuff.
That's absolutely 100% correct. Anyways, back to the voyage day. April 10th. They left at noon, but stopped at 6:30 p.m. in Cherbourg, France. It might be Cherbourg, France.
Ooh, I don't know how to say
French
names.
But I'm sure that it's something so cute, like Cherbourg.
French is like the most beautiful.
Oh, beautiful,
language.
amore,
Yeah.
bonjour.
It's so like oui.
Oui, me, I don't know, mademoiselle, all I know is from Beauty and the Beast. That's as far as my French goes. But it really is such a beautiful language. So anyway, so they went to Cherbourg, France to pick up more people. And then they left at 8:10 p.m. So they were only there for about an hour, 2 hours total.
Pretty quick to pick people up.
Yeah. Then they went to Queenstown, Ireland. They spent the night there, and then they finally headed for New York at 1:30 p.m. on April 11th. So now they're like going to sea, crossing the Atlantic. Here we go. April 12th and 13th are spent at sea, and everything is going swimmingly. The ship included, just swimming along. And then April 14th rolls around, and still all day everything is fine. Like all day, everything's good. They were supposed to have a safety drill that day, but it got canceled for some reason. No one knows, but it was under Captain Smith's orders, the captain of the ship.
Canceled
the safety where they would go through like what happens if something happens, you know. Which nowadays, and I only know this because my sister-in-law does a lot of cruises, they actually have like, I guess you're put into certain groups, quote unquote, like, and so you have certain areas where you have to conjugate if there is something that happens. And I don't know how many groups there are because I've never been on a cruise, but my sister-in-law always goes. And she was telling me how they do like this, like, she called it something weird, and I was like, what the hell is that? And she was like, oh, it's just like a safety meeting, and they do it before they even leave.
So it's almost like when you board a plane, they have group A, B, C, like they have specific groups, and then they let you know like in advance what you're gonna where you're gonna go.
Like just like with a plane when they give you all the safety stuff, like this is how you seatbelt yourself in. Mm-hmm. If there is something, there are exit rows here and there. Underneath your seat, there will be a life vest, and your seat does turn into a life vest. There will also be. I fly a lot.
So I imagine that they
didn't do any of that.
Each group.
Yeah, nowadays, but then they didn't do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're 3 days out in sea and they haven't even done any safety shit.
I would think that every time they pick up a new batch of people, they would have to just do it again.
Well, now they do. They didn't even have enough fucking lifeboats. We'll get into that in a second.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, they had been getting warnings sporadically through the day about more than usual icebergs. Like, there was, like, a thick amount, more than usual. And this was due to, it was colder than usual that time of year. It was, like, a longer winter. Oh, and so the ice caps were like still icy. Like everything was still like solid. More frozen and solid. More so than it had been any other year. In fact, they called this accident a perfect storm.
So if it had been warmer, they would have been melting, so there wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah. And they
more liquidy than like solid.
Mm-hmm. So all the warnings that they were getting warnings from the Californian and the Californian. And they were all ignored. All the warnings. At 9:20 p.m., Captain Smith heads to bed. And then at 9:40, the seventh and last warning about icebergs is received. And it never makes it to Captain Smith.
Because he was asleep or what?
Yeah. I mean, well, and there was no reason to. And we'll get more into detail later about why it was never told to Captain Smith as it comes out within the conspiracies, as well as other details about the sinking. I'm just trying to give like a general idea about dates, facts, and such, just so we can all be on the same page, and then I'll get into like more details.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why wouldn't they tell him
I
that?
know. That's why
like,
I literally...
What is going on?
I knew you were going to ask that, so I had the answer like literally right there.
Okay.
So at 11:40, Frederick. I don't know why that's so hard right now. Frederick Fleet saw the iceberg, and Lieutenant William McMaster Murdoch, which, if you watch the movie, he is actually in the Titanic movie, the James Cameron movie, orders a hard turn left. And this was all done within 37 seconds from the iceberg sighting to turning. So they were like acting pretty fucking fast. Like they were just like, dude, like down the line, like
that's good.
From the eyes, whatever, the crow's nest down, You know, it really was. I mean, that was the speed of lightning at that point. At 11:50 p.m., so 10 minutes later, they were already 14 feet of water was, like, in the boat.
Oh, yeah.
At midnight, 20 minutes later, Captain Smith is calling for help through the radio and finds out that the ship will be sunk within 2 hours because he calls up the engineer who built the boat, or, like, yeah, I guess that'd be an engineer that built the boat.
Sure.
And was like, this is going on. Fix this shit.
Yeah,
and they were like, fuck. And actually, I did not have this down, but my father-in-law came while I was typing this and, like, researching everything. And I told him that I was doing an episode on the Titanic. And he said, and he was like, well, do you know about this? And I was like, yeah, I have it right here on page 8 of my notes. Do you have it right? What about this? And he's trying to quiz me. And the only thing I didn't have that he actually, like, had was that the ship would have stayed afloat if only 5 of the watertight compartments had. But since it had already breached, like, 10, which we'll get more into that later, but yeah.
So there's a certain point where it could have
stopped,
survived.
but
yeah.
5 out of the 14, or not 14, but, like, by the time this all went down, there was already 14 watertight.
It just seems like it happened so fast.
It did, because you know why? The ocean is massive. There's like a lot of water, Heather, and so, you know, it just kind of goes in.
It builds up pretty fast.
Yeah, that makes sense,
the
right?
Water pressure is just,
That I think nobody understands how massive the water is, and I do. I don't like the ocean, for good reason.
I mean,
because it can kill you. There are things in there that are trying to kill you, and then the water itself is trying to kill you.
Well, considering I don't have gills. So
everything is death.
For me to be a little bit
there is
concerned.
nothing but death in the ocean.
Well, there's a lot of life in the ocean.
And we literally live. Well, I do. I live like a mile from the ocean,
but
and
we don't
I'm just
have gills,
like,
so
death. I don't want any part of it. Anyways, so on April 15th. So we were at April 14th. Now we're on April 15th.
Sure.
Midnight. Now it's midnight. And now it's 12:05 in the morning. Smith orders the lifeboats and everyone on deck. And as you guys all know, like, there are no lifeboats. There are not enough lifeboats at all. The crew was shooting flares, and the Californian, another boat, was only about 7 miles away.
Oh.
But they thought the flares were just them being like, woo, it's midnight and we're on the Titanic. There's fireworks.
What the hell? It's not New Year's.
The problem is that the Californian's wireless operator had already gone to bed. So they didn't realize that the Titanic was actually in trouble. Had the wireless operator been there, then they would have been like, oh shit, they need help. Let's go over and, like, say hi.
That's huge. I never knew that. That's huge.
That's a big problem.
Yes.
In everything.
Because they could have at least potentially saved
everyone. They would have saved everyone.
Really? Everyone?
Yes.
I wasn't going to say everyone.
Everyone. I'll get into it later. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Had it been executed properly, they could have easily saved everyone.
Really?
Yes. Oh. At 12:45 a.m., the first lifeboat was lowered. Than I thought.
Yeah,
no, everything gets worse. It's really bad. At 12:45 a.m., the first lifeboat was lowered. At 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat was lowered, leaving 1,500 people on board.
Wow, that's a lot.
The lifeboats only had 705 people. They could have held 1,178 people, and it would have been less devastating and less chaotic at that point. Lifeboat 7 specifically could have held 75 people, or 65 people, I'm sorry, and they only had 24 people.
Were they afraid of overfilling the lifeboats?
No, they were just being fucking stupid because they didn't realize that the Titanic would actually sink at this point. They just thought they were being they're just doing precautions, but they thought that they would actually go back onto the ship eventually.
So I have to, like, ask you a question based on the movie, which I know this is not based on the movie at all. But is it that it was the people that are, like, kind of snooty in the upper class, like they didn't want more people because they wanted it to be overcrowded, because that's how they portrayed it in the movie.
I don't think that's really what happened. I think that in real life, from reading everything and researching my entire life on this, like, I think that it's more just
ignorance. Like
they really thought that they would come back on at that point. They really thought that they would, that it was just like a precautionary type thing.
Okay.
And that they would be back on board within a few hours, and that, you know, I really think that was it, because they only let women and children first, which makes sense. But yeah, and they had no protocol. Like, these people were trained not more than 2 weeks early, like,
and
starting.
They never did the safety
thing. Yeah. Well, and Lifeboat 1 only saved 12 people when it could have held 40.
12.
Yep. The lifeboats
Wow.
did, however, save 2 dogs out of 9 that were on board. A Pekingese, and a Pomeranian. And the only reason why they think that it was saved was because somebody, like, held it in their jacket and, like, smuggled it on board.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Which,
because that's
P.S.,
like their baby.
how about you grab some fucking babies and smuggle them on board?
Yeah, grab a human.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
dogs can dog paddle.
the other 7
water,
didn't
but,
work out, but
I mean, no offense.
but honestly, no, a human child life is more important, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So at 2:18, the last message is sent, and the ship snaps in half.
Oh shit.
At 2:20, the Titanic sank, and no one ever said it was unsinkable. Never once. That was like a big headline, like, the unsinkable Titanic.
That was like the hype, yeah.
Yeah, no, they said practically unsinkable.
I mean, nothing. I guess nothing is unsinkable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's metal. It could sink. Yeah.
So at 4:10, the Carpathia arrives. Not the Californian, by the way. The Carpathia.
So where did the Californian go? Just went off.
It ended up coming back at like 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. or something, like way later. It just kept going, and then it ended up coming back, but not until way later. The Carpathia arrives, and by 8:50 a.m., they're back on their way to New York, with only 706 survivors.
706?
Luckily, they weren't at full capacity, because it was they only had 2,223 total passengers and crew on board. So 1,517 died and 706 survived. Those numbers are actually an educated guess, because no one actually knows the exact number of people that were on board. Some people never boarded when they should have, while other times there were stowaways, which at that time... Yeah, which at that time would be pretty easy to stow away.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
And then there weren't even positive identities on the bodies or anything, because people would often use aliases back then.
There's no DNA, there's no none of that.
And then they also came from like around the whole world. So it's like these people are saying, "Oh, somebody's missing," and it's not like internet and stuff now.
Yeah, there's no way of
There's
knowing.
nothing, like, you know, it'd be a telegram 10 months later being like, "Hey, by the way, have you seen this person? He's missing." And it's, what? No.
Billy Bob Joe's gone.
Yeah, okay, cool, thanks. So, the bodies who were unidentified are buried in unmarked graves in Nova Scotia.
Oh, Canada?
I don't think that's correct. I don't think Nova Scotia's in Canada.
Nova Scotia is a province in Canada, isn't it?
I actually didn't look where that was. I just thought it was fun to say Nova Scotia, and I was excited about that and moved on. Here, hold on. We'll do it in 2 seconds. Hold on.
We can erase.
Okay, so Nova Scotia is actually a province in Canada. You were right. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not a geography
We can
person.
just thank Justin Bieber because he's from Canada, so I've learned a lot about Canada.
You are so psychotic. Anyways, yeah. So that's so weird that it would be in Canada because I just figured that it would be in France or Europe, like you know, like over
Ireland
there,
or
back
something,
over there, not in Canada.
I mean, well, there's a lot of French Canadians.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyways,
French
we're just sounding more and more stupid as we continue forward.
French Canadian.
And do you want to hear? Okay, this one's a sad one, guys. You got to hear this. A body of a 19-month-old boy was found, but they were unable to identify who he was. They buried him in Nova Scotia with a marker that said, erected to the memory of an unknown child whose remains were discovered after the disaster to the Titanic, April 15th, 1912. So as DNA advancements moved forward, they were able to excavate his body and run DNA testing.
What?
In 2008, he was successfully identified as Sidney Goodwin.
Holy, wow.
And the only reason why, which I don't have the notes on, but when I was reading it, they couldn't identify him before because they didn't find the rest of his family.
Yeah.
And his family was going to America to work on coal mines or something with the dad's brother. But because of the way everything is, they just hadn't communicated, like the mail hadn't gotten to them yet to be like, hey, we're going to be there.
Yeah.
Wait for us or come pick us up or whatever, you know? And so they weren't for sure. And it was much easier to, like, lose people back then, you know? Like,
sure, yeah.
Like, just lose track of people. So it took that long and to figure it out, and they had no idea what happened to their family from stories going down through the generations.
That's amazing that they can even identify the baby with DNA at
and
that point.
they think that they have the shoes of that baby, and it's in a museum somewhere. I don't have notes on that one, so I don't know. But
whoa. Okay.
So, anyways, on April 17th, the McKay Bennett went looking for bodies, and they only found 328.
I feel like that's kind of a lot that they did find, though, because it's the ocean.
Imagine, yeah.
And you got to think there's predators in the ocean.
Mm-hmm. And they had to leave 119 of them behind and bury them at sea because they were too disembodied to take back. Mm-hmm. April 18th, the Carpathia arrives to New York carrying the 705 survivors. September 1st, 1985, Robert Ballard's expedition team finds the wreckage after 73 years of looking for this fucking ship.
Wow, it took 73 years?
Uh-huh. And so I think the Titanic movie, James Cameron's, is about this expedition.
And you know what? I think that they actually, at the end of the movie or part of the movie, they show actual footage.
I think they do too, yeah.
I think they do.
They do, yeah, for sure. When they're going down with the old lady and all that, I think it is. I think, yeah, because I did watch all the commentary and everything about that. So, the British Board of Trade found the last 7th warning was the only one that was saying the iceberg was directly in the Titanic's pathway. Had Captain Smith heard, he would have changed course, but like I said, the message never made it up to him. And also, the Titanic was actually called the RMS Titanic, which stands for Royal Mail Ship. And the Titanic was holding 3,423 sacks of mail, which was 7 million individual pieces of mail.
Oh.
And to this day, no mail has ever been recovered. Which makes sense because mail's not going to last 73 years in the fucking ocean.
Well, yeah, as soon as it gets wet, it's going to, all the ink is going to, like, you know, blend together.
Mm-hmm. And the paper is going to deteriorate. Yeah. So, anyways,
it would be interesting just to find, like, one piece, though.
Just for fun, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, even in the Titanic movie, when they found Rose's picture, it was almost deteriorated, and that was inside of a sealed container. Even though it's not real, but so okay, now on to the conspiracies. So this has only taken a while, 38 minutes to get this far, but it's all information. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot with
Yeah, so I'm almost like, do we need to do part 2? Like, this is the history of Titanic, and then we'll do part 2 for the conspiracies? Like, I'm so serious. All right, the conspiracies, I'm sure, will be quick. So this one's a pretty popular conspiracy, and it's one that we've all heard, like, forever. But I never really understood it because it has to do with the insurance scam, and I didn't understand insurance stuff when I was younger. And I was like, I don't understand, like, how they could switch out ships and why and what the purpose would be. So, the conspiracy is that the Titanic never sank. A ship sank, but it was never the Titanic, and it was an entirely different ship. Apparently, White Star Line had some competition throughout the years. Their ships were known as the Big Four. The Big Four ships at the time were built from 1900 to 1906, and they were the biggest, fastest, and most luxurious of the time. They were called the Celtic, Cedric, Baltic, and Adriatic. Other ocean liner companies were constantly trying to be faster and better than White Star Line. White Star Line had major competition and was in a whose ship is bigger competition with another company called Cunard Steamship Company Ltd. Conrad had the largest passenger ship at the time. And that was in 1906 and 1907. They had 2 ships, the Louis. I should have practiced saying all these ships first.
No, it's okay. Is it French words?
It's Lusitania, and the Mauritania.
Lucia. Wait, what?
I know, it's hard. Lusitania and
it's probably not Louis.
Lusitania, whatever. Lusitania and the Mauritania. These ships could go fast and were massive, and these ships outran the quote-unquote Big Four of the White Star Line by miles. Like, they were just going.
Yeah.
White Star Line had been purchased in 1902 by the International Mercantile Marine Company, which was owned by a major banker and financier. Maybe you've heard of him. J.P. Morgan Chase.
Oh.
I personally have a couple credit cards with him. How are you doing with Chase?
So, yeah, Chase is
Chase is Amazon, by the way, because I have my Amazon credit card. And Chase used to be Walmart, and then they pulled Walmart out of it. And now
Chase is a huge financial institution.
It's huge.
Like,
yeah.
So, there's a whole thing about the J.P. Morgan.
I know.
Yeah.
So
we'll get into that on another
episode.
Yeah,
definitely. Since we did the Rothschilds, definitely gonna go into J.P. Morgan and figure out where the hell the Rothschilds went. And she's trying to advertise for FedNow, so go look at our not advertise for it, but advertise for our episode of FedNow. Go check out that episode if you haven't already. Meanwhile, so the White Star Line is being financially backed by J.P. Morgan Chase, who's like, fuck that. We're going to get this ship. We're going to make the biggest, bestest, fastest. Like, we're going to beat this shit, and we're going to make the best ship ever. Yeah. I got the money to finance it. Let's do this. So here enters the building of the Titanic, as well as her sister ships. There are 2 sister ships, yes. Plural. The Olympic and the Britannic.
Oh, I've heard of the Olympic.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard of the Britannic.
I know. It's really weird because I hadn't, like, I think that I had, but not really. So it was the Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic, which were in that order of, like, age.
Oh.
So Britannic did not set sail until 1914, 2 years after the Titanic sank. The Olympic was built right before the Titanic, like literally months before.
That's why I think I heard about that. Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, there should be a disclaimer on these fucking ships because the Olympic already had 5 voyages and encountered problems each time. Oh. And the 6th time the Olympic went out was on September 20th, 1911. And they ran into a military ship and it was proven to be the White Star Line's fault.
Wait, they ran into a military ship?
There's a lot going on.
Wow.
So we have the Olympic barely able to float, and then the Titanic mid-build. And here is where the plot thickens and the conspiracy begins. It was this point in time that they decided to switch the ships. White Star Line was sinking financially. Definitely pun intended.
Yeah. That's a good one.
They could not afford to be blamed for this accident, and they weren't making any money while the Olympic was sitting broken at port. So instead of finishing the Titanic and letting it sail, they decided to fix the Olympic using the Titanic name and funds, which would mean this is not the maiden voyage for the Titanic, as the Olympic had already been out 6 times and was already damaged. Where the iceberg hit the Titanic was in the same location that the Olympic had already been hit.
No.
If the Olympic was truly taking the place of the Titanic, the Olympic would be weaker at that point of contact.
Yeah. So, insurance fraud.
Yeah. What validates this theory is that in 1985, when they found the Titanic in the Atlantic, they found several pieces of quote-unquote slag, which is a cheap welding type of material. So either they were giving the Olympic a quick patch job.
Ooh, like a Band-Aid.
Or they cut corners while building the Titanic to cut costs. Especially after the mishap with the Olympic, they wouldn't have that many funds.
I mean, that makes sense.
Either way, the owners of the Titanic were planning to crash the Titanic. But not like how it went down. The infamous iceberg literally derailed their plans, and they had a £5 million insurance policy on the Titanic, meaning that as it posed as the Olympic, it could get into a little scuffle and then cash out. Mm-hmm. And that was like the plan, was just to be like just a little scuffle, but then that big ass iceberg came along and fucked everything.
Not to like capsize the whole fucking...
Yeah, and so their plan was to keep everyone safe, and there only being like a few minor problems, which could be why they didn't fill the lifeboats fully, because they really thought that it was a planned thing.
They were gonna need them.
Yeah.
They're
and
like,
then
that's not our plan. We're not gonna be in a position where we're gonna have to rescue all of these people.
Yeah, and then with that money, they could pay off the crash from the Olympic and keep everything going.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Extra funds.
And then at the end, they would end up with 2 fully operable ships. Mm-hmm. Could this be what happened? Did the real Titanic never even get all the way finished, let alone leave port?
I mean, it's possible.
Or maybe something more sinister was at play. Dun, dun, dun.
Drum roll, please.
And here we come into conspiracy number 2. What if J.P. Morgan Chase wanted the Titanic to sink in order to get rid of his own personal banking competition? Dun, dun, dun!
I like this one more.
So, maybe he had already switched the ships for insurance purposes. And as an added bonus, to get rid of all of his competitors. But whom? Who would he have that much beef with, and why?
Ooh, I'm sure a lot of people had beef with him.
Well, apparently J.P. Morgan Chase wanted to go forward with the Federal Reserve Bank. Mm-hmm. Well, 3 other major financiers in the game was opposing the Federal Reserve Bank idea. One of them being John Jacob Astor IV. He was a member of a long-standing wealthy family and was rumored to be possibly the wealthiest man in the world at the time.
Wait, what was his name again?
John Jacob Astor IV. We might do a thing on that.
I've never heard that name before, honestly. So when you said it, it caught my attention because I really wanted to know who this person is.
He was the wealthiest person on Titanic and possibly the world. Like,
at the time in 1912.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a big guy that was on there. Like a big famous person. And I think that James Cameron actually did have somebody playing his role as like one of
the characters was based on him.
Yeah, exactly. So like he did have real characters based on the real people, but yeah. So the second guy would have been Benjamin Guggenheim. He came from a wealthy family, but also married into even bigger wealth. While his wife and family were in New York, they were often separated and had some marital problems. And he actually had his own apartment in Paris, France. Oh. I love drama.
Yeah.
I don't like to be a part of it. No. But I want to be a part of it 210%. Hear all about it and tell all about it.
Yeah. Do tell.
So anyways, Guggenheim was the one who supposedly put a rose in his lapel of his jacket and said, "We've dressed in our best. We should go down like gentlemen in our best."
Oh, classy.
Yeah, he's very classy. And this was depicted in James Cameron's movie.
What is it called? A distinguished gentleman.
Yes, very distinguished for the time. The third one, which you'll know, was Isidore Straus. And
yes.
He was the co-owner of Macy's department store. Mm-hmm. And his wife, Ida, was able to get on a lifeboat, but instead would not leave her husband, saying, "Where you go, I go." And they are portrayed in the Titanic movie. And you can see them as being the old couple laying in bed holding each other while their room filled up with water.
No, that's them?
Yeah, but
I can picture it right now.
I know it's so sad, but in real life, Ida put her maid, Ellen, on a lifeboat and gave her the fur coat that she was wearing and said, "I have no more use for it."
The maid?
And the couple was last seen...
You know what is really sad about that? Is that's probably, like, the maid would probably be considered, like, the lower class. Because
and
that was probably one of the only
lower class people that actually made it on. Yeah.
Wow.
And,
that's very impactful.
Yeah, so the last time the couple was seen was on holding hands on the deck of the ship when a big wave came and they knocked them overboard.
Holding hands?
So it wasn't.
I love love.
I know, but that was so it wasn't as like sad as I think the bed scene when the water's floating up. Still, yeah. And man, was she like that was like that's an amazing woman to be like
she's going down with her man.
I commend her that she chose to die with her husband than live without him. Like, as romantic as I like say that I am and that I love, I don't think I would do that. Sorry, Brad.
No,
bye.
You're so funny, but I feel like that's like
I don't think I could do it.
I feel like that you would though, but because of your kids, I feel like it will be more like one of us has to fucking survive for the kids, bro. Like, we got these kids. You know?
Let's use them as an excuse. No, I don't think that would be an excuse. Sure. I think I would be like, fuck off.
Okay, to be honest, because in my mind...
I'm so scared of drowning.
You know why I said kids? Because in my mind, when anything comes to that in the end, I just think of my kids. So it's like, I feel like you would maybe be the same.
Okay. Or I would be like,
cricket.
Put the kids on the boat, and then I'll be right there. Just stay there while I say bye to your dad.
I don't have a husband, let alone a boyfriend.
I would legit be like...
So all I have is my kids to think about. So.
I'd be like throwing the kids on the board, on the boat, and being like, hey, let me go say bye to your dad really quick. Bye. I'll be right there, sweetie. Don't worry.
Smell you later.
Peace. I'll pray for you.
Bless his heart.
R.I.P. He's still alive, by the way. My husband is still alive.
We love you, Brad. We really do. Poor Brad.
I know. He gets the butt of everything.
Oh, but we do love you.
Okay, so meanwhile, J.P. Morgan should have been on the Titanic. He fucking funded it.
Wait a minute. He was what?
There you go.
He's on the manifest or what?
He definitely was.
What the fuck?
He even had his, like, own stateroom. A massive fucking suite. With his own balcony. Bathtub. He had everything. At 11 a.m., an hour before departure, he's like, I'm good. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to stay in Europe for a few days to go, do you know why? To go pick out a tapestry for his art.
A tapestry?
Tapestry.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
Redecorating his
Who
house?
fucking knows?
Wow.
The only reason, like, the only argument people have about this theory is simply because of how extravagant it is. Like, how would he get his enemies onto the ship?
Without having his name on the manifest.
And then there would be, like, easier ways to take them out than to sink a whole goddamn ship. But if they were
poison them.
But if they were already trying to, like, sink the ship anyways, I feel like this was just an added bonus for him. And then, also, everyone in the early 1900s seems like they were so, like, polite and cordial that they'd be like, oh, yes, sir. Like, there's no frenemies.
Yeah.
Like, well I mean, they're the epitome of frenemies, but, like,
yeah.
Oh, thank you for my invitation on the Titanic.
Well, everything is so proper.
Yeah, and everyone was waiting for the maiden voyage of the Titanic. And so if they were able to get on, I just don't see why that would affect them. Like, especially if their wives were all about, like, getting on, they'd be like, oh, thank you, Mr. Chase, for letting us on the Titanic. You know, Mary Jo over here is really excited, or Elizabeth, or...
Well, I'm sure that it was a very, like, prestige thing to be, like, on the maiden voyage of the Titanic.
Yeah.
The largest ship at the time. It's, like, this massive... You know, even, like, the lower class people that were able to get on was, like, a huge deal for them.
Yeah, it was.
And let alone, like, the elite. They want to be, like, known, you know, that they're on it. And they're going to America.
What's funny, though, is that do we know about anybody that has been on any other ships?
I mean, I don't. I can't say
No. So even if the Titanic had made it all the way, nobody would know their names because we don't know who was on the Olympic.
And isn't it true that the Titanic sunk, like, very close to where they were going to dock? Like,
I meant to look that up. It looks...
I mean, like, not very close, like, right literally there, but, like,
it still took 2 days for the Carpathia to get to New York. So it's not as close as we thought, but
yeah.
There was extra people, and at that point, they were probably trying to move, like, slow and not be so quick. And because, like, yeah, I think they were, like, a day or two, and they were supposed to actually... it was supposed to take a couple days longer than how fast they did get there. They shouldn't have been that close at that point.
But it was, like, the best ship at the time. So
no,
was, like,
but they were trying...
fast.
Well, no, because it'll get into it later. Just hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the next one. Hold on. Hold on. Stand by.
I'm just
Stand
like,
by.
where are we on the map?
So, anyway, back to JP Morgan Chase trying to kill off his competitors. It would look weird if they just started drop dead. He needed something big where they all just went down at the same time. Or else it would look like the bankers.
And this is the 3, right? There's
Yeah.
3. Yeah.
Yeah. Or else it would look like the bankers that we went over a few weeks ago or a month, whatever, where all 40 bankers just, like, died.
It was very convenient. They all die at the same time.
Yeah. So, if this really did happen, and it's not a conspiracy, I think that JP Morgan Chase was an opportunist, and since they already had the plan to, like, crash the Titanic, just a little bit for insurance purposes, why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone type thing?
Sure, why not?
And maybe he didn't want chance going down with the ship in case things did go awry. The next few are more things that occurred that shouldn't have and created the perfect storm. Like I said, people call it the perfect storm for the Titanic. Not so much as conspiracies, but more of, like, what if? Like, what if this didn't happen exactly as it did? So, conspiracy number 3 is that Captain Smith was just fucking going too fast. And they were in the race for the best ship. So, it makes sense that he'd be trying to push his limits. Apparently, 22 knots is super fast for that time of year in the middle of the Atlantic.
22 knots is very fast.
And then, well, especially because everything was so frozen.
Yeah.
And then also, side story, Captain Smith had been in several ship accidents before. Usually minor fender benders. I mean, he's only sank 1 ship.
Only 1.
great track record.
I mean, it's not bad, but it's like, I guess it's like only totally in one car.
And killing everybody.
This is a ship.
So
3,000 lives.
He was the captain of the Olympic when she was hit. All the times that she was hit.
Really?
And other shipwrecks.
Of the Olympic?
Yeah.
That's suspect.
Yeah.
Itself.
And then they even called him, his name was like Edward Smith, but they call him like Edward Lucky Smith.
Okay.
Because he kept just doing fender benders and not...
Yeah. Okay.
He wasn't lucky on the Titanic.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And then, so, like I said before, the Californian had given multiple warning signals to the Titanic about the abnormally thick icebergs in the Titanic's pathway. They failed to preface the last one with MSG, which stands for Master Service Gram, which would mean that the captain would be required to look at this transmission.
Oh, it's like a 911.
Yeah. And so because they didn't do that, even though they were supposed to, like they had been told, like the radio operator on the Californian was told to put MSG, but he like didn't. Mm-hmm. The radio operator on the Titanic, Jack Phillips, did not see it as an urgent matter, so did not wake up Captain Smith. It's Captain Jack Sparrow.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you know what? That makes sense, because if that was like a distress call, obviously that's just like an alert. We're alerting you. That's a basic alert.
Yeah, but
that's
they had already
system,
had 6.
But that's their system for like one of their parts to their system of alerting, and you don't wake up the captain and you don't put that through the proper way. I mean, it's not really the captain's fault. It's not like, I mean, how do you...
Okay, well...
Where do you go from there? It's just, it's fucked up. It's just fucked up.
It is. And,
it's like a training problem or something.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. I don't think they were, because they only had a couple of days beforehand.
Like what are they doing? They're not handling it the correct manner. They're not doing the precaution. They're not taking the precautions that they're supposed to take. They're not
and
following protocol.
Well, I don't think they knew what protocol was.
I mean,
they hadn't been trained on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another one. Had the watchtower crew had binoculars, maybe they could have seen it.
Wait a minute, they didn't have binoculars?
Seems silly, right? Even pirates in the 1500s had fucking binoculars. Captain Jack Sparrow had a goddamn spectacle.
Even pirates in the 1500s had binoculars, because I distinctly remember binoculars in the movie by James Cameron. But I know we're not talking about the movie. But are you really telling me they didn't have binoculars or use them?
It's a conspiracy. This is because
dude.
Second Officer David Blair had possession of the key to the cabinet that held the binoculars.
Why are they locked? This is not a gun.
Right? Unfortunately.
Why are they locked? They should be around your neck.
Unfortunately.
Is this part of the uniform? I'm so confused.
Isn't it part of the uniform?
This is not right.
Well, the problem is that it was part of the uniform. But...
What?
Second Officer David Blair had been transferred in Southampton last minute.
Oh. Have fun in the Hamptons.
So he left.
Okay.
Kind of like JP Morgan changed his mind last minute.
Convenient.
Although he forgot to turn in the keys.
Oh, even more convenient.
And he even kept the keys afterwards as a memento of a near-death experience.
I'm dead.
Heather's dying. This is it. She fell over. She's done.
Oh my goodness.
And they were sold in 2007 for £90,000.
This is fucking. This is just wrong.
I don't. Okay, what I don't understand is why wouldn't they just break open the cabinet?
Yeah, fucking there's got to be like a hatchet somewhere.
They're like
they're all around,
and they're like have engineers and like crew and shit and like tools.
You gotta have a hatchet that you can break shit open.
Okay,
We've
well,
seen that in movies. Hello.
Yeah, what about a good set of spectacles or some monocles or some shit like the little Monopoly man has, right? The little monocle.
The other thing, it's
monocle.
It's an iceberg. Isn't it cold as fuck? Can't you like feel the cold? Like, I don't know, not miles, but like how many feet away? Like, you can't even sense that there's an iceberg.
Part of the problem with that perfect storm thing, with how like crazy it was, the weather.
Freezing.
It is, but that was standard for the Atlantic. But
I guess
the moon and the sun, the way that it was on that particular night, it was casting weird like shadowy type things. And the way that it was making these like illusions that weren't really there.
Like
then
mirage?
they couldn't, like mirages, but on the sea. Huh. And so that was part of the reason why the California didn't realize that it was fireworks, because they thought that the Titanic was a mirage, that it was smaller than it actually was. They thought they were like 20 miles away. They didn't realize that they were so close because the Titanic looked like so much small.
Though, right?
Yeah. And the Titanic looked so much smaller because of the way that the night sky happened to be that night. So it really was. There's a lot of factors. Yeah, that went into this. But I'm just saying, like, if they had the fucking binoculars. And then it goes back to J.P. Morgan. I'm like, could this have been a setup? Did he pull him off?
Oh.
With the keys.
I don't know. I mean,
anything
is possible at this point.
I'm just spitballing here, but like, I think it's kind of a coincidence and pretty weird to like not have binoculars. Like,
it's bizarre.
It's fucking weird.
That's what I said. Is like, he got the uniform, like literally?
Yeah. Where's your telescope?
Like
or something. Like what? I don't understand at all. Even Captain Jack Sparrow had a fucking. It doesn't make any sense. No.
It doesn't make any sense.
So, anyways, what's funny though is that the binocular thing has been, quote unquote, debunked. But then they sold the keys. So it's like, why would they sell the key if it hadn't? If it wasn't true?
Okay, so no, it had to have been locked up because there is a key.
There's a key. Something was locked.
That validates that.
Yeah. So but like, wouldn't you think that binoculars would be part of the uniform of a watchman?
Exactly. That's what I said.
Why isn't it on? The key. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't it be like in your pocket, like
that's
somewhere?
Anybody's first thought.
A policeman.
The uniform.
A policeman has a walkie-talkie, a gun, a baton, all this shit.
And it's like, even if you live like there are certain countries where like they outlawed guns, you have a fucking taser, don't you? Or a fucking walkie.
They have stuff around them.
You have your utilities.
I was going to say a utility belt. Construction workers. A hammer and shit. You have a utility belt. Why wouldn't the watchman have a utility belt of binoculars?
That's bizarre.
Yeah. So, anyways, there's also the theory that the watertight doors that were supposed to make the Titanic virtually unsinkable actually caused the Titanic to sink.
Oh.
Apparently, the thought is that if they would have opened the watertight doors, the ship would have leveled out. So if they just made the bottom row, just let it fill up, it wouldn't have sank like all the way. So it wouldn't have top heavied and gone up and then snapped in half. It would have just like leveled out. But then other theories...
So, like, the water would have been dispersed more evenly?
Yeah,
so it wouldn't
would have, like, done, like, all of, like, the bottom and the coal and all that, but it would have, like, stopped.
Yeah.
Because then they could have watertight shut the doors on, like, you know, the 3/4 up or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure how much up.
I don't understand, but like,
I don't know how many levels there really were, but, like, okay, say that there's 10 levels and the 2 levels were sunk. Mm-hmm. They could have just allowed the 2 levels to be sunk, and then the top 8 would be fine.
And you would lose those lives, unfortunately, but everyone else could have been saved.
Or they could have run up.
Yeah.
They could have run up to the 7th
Yeah.
level, and then or the 8th level, and then they would have been fine. And then it would have just bobbed out until the Carpathia came, or the Californian,
they
or
could have been
whoever.
rescued.
And everybody could have been rescued.
Wow.
So that's a theory, but other people say that it would have sunk faster, but I kind of go with the theory that it would have leveled out. But you never know. And the ocean is such a fucked up place. I fucking hate the ocean. Okay, so who or what to blame the Titanic sinking on brought on so many other theories, and one being that many of those who should have been blamed and held accountable were simply not, because they were part of the Freemasons.
Oh.
Apparently during this time, and probably still today, Freemasons are and were entangled in every bit of our society and around the world. They are a fraternal brotherhood that takes care of everybody within its brotherhood, within themselves.
Yeah.
While the brotherhood is not a secret, the members definitely were and still are, if they are still around.
Oh,
Which you
they
never
are for sure. I know.
I think I'm almost positive. Yeah,
I know for sure they are.
They have to be.
I know somebody who's a Freemason.
Shh.
Well, that's another
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The head investigator that was looking into the sinking was John Charles Bigham, who was a Freemason. Mm-hmm. He did all he could to redirect the blame off of the British Board of Trade for lack of safety regulations, mainly the lack of lifeboats. Sidney Buxton was a Freemason, who was also conveniently the president of the British Board of Trade. Also, 2 of the 5 assessors were also Freemasons, Professor John Harvard Biles and Edward Chaston. So did the Freemasons sabotage the investigation to protect themselves? Could this be more than a redirection of blame? Maybe this goes deeper and they were protecting each other and their faults even before the ship took off. Ooh. Or maybe the ship didn't even have a chance at all. One conspiracy says there was a mummy on board.
What?
Being transported to America. A cursed mummy who made the ship go down.
I believe that more than the Freemasons.
I was going to say this is just a fun conspiracy.
But I'm going for this one, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they debunked this one pretty quickly, as they would have known if there was a mummy on board. It's not like the mummy could have, snuck on. And nobody could have snuck on the mummy. And it wasn't part of, anything. They have no record of a mummy being on. That was just my fun conspiracy at the end. My fun, lighthearted conspiracy. And you're like, that's the one I believe.
Well, okay, I love archaeology and anthropology. And I did actually study anthropology and archaeology in college when I was younger. And I just love anything and everything about the study of man and past eras and lives, and I really do believe that when you dig up mummies,
and stuff,
for
sure.
Hello,
It's you can't do that.
You cannot do that.
Can't do
it's
that.
like digging up
sacred anything.
And Native American tribes.
Well, you're only saying that because we're here.
I know,
but that is
America.
the same thing,
I know, it's
pretty
like
much.
The same thing.
Yeah,
you
but
don't
it's
fuck with
Egypt
that shit.
instead.
You don't fuck with that.
No, you don't. But I don't think there was
Curses and shit are gonna come down on
I don't
you.
think there was a mummy on board of the Titanic.
If there was, then that explains everything.
Yes, it does. So, that's all the conspiracies I have that were just the interesting ones that I wanted to talk about, because there's so many. But those are just
the
the
more
fun.
about the mummy.
That was supposed to be my fun one. I didn't really look into it. It's been debunked. Maybe we should just do a conspiracy on mummies. Why don't you do that?
Okay, we're gonna do one about mummies.
All right.
Sure.
So it's just so sad that so many people had to lose their life over mismanaged safety protocols. Had there been enough lifeboats, or even if the ones they did have were filled to capacity, there would have been at least 0 to 5% total lost lives, as opposed to over 50%. Literally. Yeah. Even if they had just done the lifeboats properly. Mm-hmm. There's so many safety protocols that should have been in effect that have now been put into effect due to the Titanic.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, so many. Let me run through the references really quickly. Thoughtco.com, article, A Timeline of the Sinking of the Titanic by Jennifer Rosenberg, July 28th, 2019. Business Insider, Article 5, Wild Conspiracy Theories Surrounding the Sinking of the Titanic by Anne Kane, April 12th, 2018. PopularMechanics.com, article The Wild Conspiracy Theory That the Titanic Never Sank by David Grossman, March 10th, 2023. History Channel, just general information, search, and just History Channel. History Channel. All of it, yeah. International Business Times, article Inquiry into Titanic Disaster Whitewashed by Freemason Members by Irwin Palmer on November 23rd, 2015.
So that was so much fun, Jenna. Thank you. I love listening to everything about the Titanic, and I'm actually leaning more towards the J.P. Morgan conspiracy.
Yeah, we will definitely do how J.P. Morgan became a banking success and where he came from, and if there's a family tie, just like the Rothschild family dynasty, maybe there is a J.P. Morgan family dynasty, a Chase family dynasty. I mean, Chase is still around, so there has to be something going on. And then there was something else, the mummies that you want to talk about. So It seems like every time that we do any episode, all it does is bring up more conspiracies that we want to dive more into. Every single time, it always leads into more and more and more. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I know this was a long one, so thanks for sticking around, but the Titanic is a classic, so we have to do it.
Thank you so much, and don't forget to share, subscribe, and follow us. And thank you to all of our new followers on Facebook. We have well over 1,000.
Over 1,000, yeah.
We love you all, and we appreciate you, and keep commenting and giving us. I know a lot of people have been giving us ideas.
Amazing ideas. You guys have been messaging, commenting, just everything, and so we are looking into all of those, and just give us more ideas, and we will definitely look into it, cover it. We are here to debunk or fact check everything that you guys send us, and we'd love to do episodes on all of it, so let us know, and thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Bye.